Welcome back to Timeless Wisdom, where we unearth these amazing gems of guidance from the Quran.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be talking about the profound significance of beginning everything in the name of God.
Absolutely.
And honestly, at first glance, this concept might seem like, well, duh, right?
Yeah.
But trust me, there's a whole world of wisdom packed into it.
Yeah.
And to really appreciate it, we have to kind of go back to the very beginning.
Absolutely. And speaking of the very beginning, we have the very first revelation that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, received.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, he was known to be illiterate, unable to read or write. Yet the first command that he received from God was read.
I know. And it's such a powerful moment in history. I get chills every time I think about that.
Yeah.
To think that an illiterate man was chosen to become a teacher for all of humanity.
Right.
And the command read itself. It wasn't just literal, was it?
No, exactly. It was definitely metaphorical, you know?
Yeah.
It signified that beginning of knowledge being revealed to mankind through Prophet Muhammad.
Okay.
And if you look at the verses that follow, 96, 1 through 4, they really highlight God's generosity in teaching and the importance of acknowledging his role in all knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I think that's so interesting because it makes you realize that, like, even when we learn from, teachers or books, even those things, the ability to learn that is ultimately a gift from God.
Yes.
It's kind of like we often go through life taking our skills and abilities for granted and forget the source of all that allows us to learn and grow in the first place.
Right, right.
It's almost like modern psychology is catching up to what the Quran revealed centuries ago about the power of gratitude,
I see that connection too.
Yeah.
And this idea is further emphasized in verse 10.1, where God clearly states that he chose to reveal the Quran and make it accessible to us.
Oh.
So now let's shift gears a bit and see how this concept of starting everything in God's name applies to other areas of our lives, beyond seeking knowledge.
Okay, so we're going beyond just reading.
Yep.
What kind of practical examples are we talking about here?
Well, let's take farming, for instance.
Okay.
It seems like a pretty simple, straightforward act, right?
Yeah.
But when you really break it down, you realize there are so many elements that are completely beyond our control. Like, think about the composition of the soil, the way that a tiny seed sprouts and grows, the rain that nourishes the plants.
Yeah.
All of these are gifts from God.
Yeah, it's a really good point because it is kind of a humbling reminder that even in our modern world, with all of our technology and advancements, we still rely on things we don't fully understand or control.
Right.
Like, natural resources.
Yeah.
The workings of the human body.
The internet.
Yeah, the internet. It's crazy.
It goes on and on.
Yeah.
And there's a beautiful illustration of this in verses 36.71, 72, where God talks about subjugating certain animals for our benefit. It contrasts the animals that we can domesticate and utilize with those that remain beyond our control, no matter how hard we try. It really highlights God's will and determining what we perceive as even the natural order of things.
Yeah, I never thought about it like that, but that's so fascinating because a child can, lead a camel, yet even the strongest man can't tame a venomous snake.
Exactly.
There really is this power greater than us at play that's guiding, and governing this whole universe.
Right. It's crazy. And sometimes, we need a little more than just a natural order of things to truly grasp this concept.
Okay.
And that's where the example of droughts comes in.
Okay.
Verse 42.4950. It demonstrates how God's will can override even the perfect conditions for rain. Emphasizing his ultimate power over all of creation. It really is a profound realization, isn't it?
Yeah.
It makes you think about all those times in life when you desperately want something. Maybe it's a child or successful business. Or even just a good night's sleep,
Yeah.
And despite our best efforts, it just remains out of reach.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder of God's ultimate control and the limits of, our own agency.
It really does put things into perspective because we plan, we strive, we try to control every aspect of our lives.
Right.
And yet there's this underlying truth that God is the ultimate cause.
Yeah.
The driving force behind it all. So how do we actually internalize that? How do we bridge that gap between like intellectually understanding this concept and truly living it?
That's a great question, and that's where the real work begins.
Yeah.
It's about cultivating a constant awareness of God's presence and power in every aspect of our lives.
Good.
It's about shifting our perspective from like, I did this, to God allowed this to happen through me. You know, it's a subtle shift, but it's a profound one.
So it's about recognizing that even like our successes, our talents, our achievements, they're all ultimately gifts from God.
Exactly.
Not something we can just take credit for.
Yeah. And this awareness can be incredibly empowering.
Okay.
You know, when we face challenges, it reminds us that we're not alone in our struggles. And when we achieve something great, it cultivates gratitude and humility, and it prevents us from becoming, you know, arrogant or self-important.
Yeah. And that's so interesting because it reminds me of what we see in modern psychology today, like the emphasis on mindfulness, gratitude, you know, recognizing a power greater than ourselves.
Right.
These are all concepts that like are being touted as essential for mental well-being.
Yeah.
And yet they've been embedded in like Islamic teachings for centuries.
It's true. Islam offers such a holistic approach to life, addressing not just our spiritual needs, but our emotional and psychological well-being as well.
Yeah.
And this shift in perspective, this conscious remembrance of God, that's what truly elevates our actions. It transforms the mundane into acts of worship.
I love that, transforming the mundane into acts of worship.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, even simple things like eating a meal or going for a walk.
Right.
They can become infused with this deeper meaning when we approach them with that awareness.
Precisely. And it's not just about the big events in life. It's about every single choice we make. Every action we take.
Yeah.
It's about bringing that awareness to even the smallest details of our lives.
Okay.
And it starts with a simple act, saying Bismillah, which means in the name of God, before we begin anything.
It sounds so simple, yet so profound.
It is. It's a declaration of our intention, a recognition of God's sovereignty, and a reminder that, you know, we're not ultimately in control.
Yeah.
It's a way of surrendering to a power greater than ourselves, you know, inviting God's blessings into our endeavors.
I understand the concept, but honestly, like thinking about my own life, it just feels daunting. Like, how do we maintain that awareness throughout the day? Like, yeah, it's easy to say Bismillah at the start, but how do we keep that connection with God strong? Amidst like all the busyness of life, you know, all the distractions, the deadlines, the to-do lists?
That's a great question. And that's where the true challenge lies. It requires conscious effort, mindfulness, and a constant turning back to God. One practical way is to incorporate regular moments of reflection into your day.
So like taking a few minutes just to pause, breathe, and like reconnect with God.
Exactly. Whether it's through prayer, reading the Quran, or simply quiet contemplation. These moments allow us to step back from the noise of the world and remember our true purpose.
Yeah.
Our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
It's like hitting the reset button on our minds.
Right.
And our hearts.
Yeah.
You know, recalibrating our compass to point back to God.
Yeah.
But those moments of quiet reflection, they don't have to be like long or elaborate, do they?
Not at all. Even a few minutes of sincere connection can make a world of difference.
Nope.
The key is consistency. Just like we nourish our bodies with food throughout the day, we need to nourish our souls with remembrance of God.
So it's not just about saying the words Bismillah.
Right.
It's about embodying that concept, that way of life in everything we do.
Exactly.
Like making that awareness a constant companion, like a guiding force in our journey.
Beautifully put, it's a profound shift in perspective that can transform our entire experience of life, bringing peace, purpose, and meaning to even the most ordinary moments.
This has been so insightful. You've given me a lot to think about and work on. I really appreciate your guidance.
You're most welcome. And you know, if you're looking for more guidance on applying these principles to your daily life, I highly recommend checking out the Broke Entrepreneur YouTube channel.
That's a great suggestion. I've heard good things about their content.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah.
Like it's inspiring to see how they're connecting like ancient wisdom to modern challenges. You know, it's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day hustle and forget about these deeper truths.
Yeah.
But this conversation has been like such a powerful reminder of the importance of starting everything in God's name.
Absolutely.
In every aspect of our lives.
It truly is. It's a transformative practice.
Yeah.
And it's not just about like the big decisions or monumental moments. It's about bringing that awareness to even the most like mundane tasks. Imagine, approaching your work, your relationships, even just your household chores with that sense of intention, that connection to something greater than yourself.
It almost feels like a form of mindfulness, like intentionally grounding yourself in the present moment and recognizing God's presence in every detail.
Exactly. It's about infusing our actions with purpose and meaning. It's about remembering that even the smallest acts can become acts of worship when we do them with like the right intention and awareness.
It's a beautiful thought because it makes me think about how often we just kind of rush through our days. Mindlessly checking off our to-do list without really pausing to appreciate like the gifts and blessings that surround us.
It's so easy to fall into that trap, but when we consciously start everything in God's name, it helps us to slow down, to appreciate the present moment and to find joy in like even the simplest things.
So as we're wrapping up this episode, what's like the one piece of advice you would give to our listeners who are trying to cultivate this awareness, this practice of starting everything in God's name?
Start small. Don't feel overwhelmed by the idea of transforming your whole life overnight.
Yeah.
Just begin by choosing one area, one activity where you can consciously incorporate this practice. Maybe it's your morning routine, your work, or your interactions with your family. Just like focus on that one area and make a conscious effort to begin it in God's name with intention and awareness.
Yeah, that's really practical advice. I think it's important to remember that personal growth is a journey.
It's not a destination. It's about taking like small steps, making gradual changes, and constantly striving to improve.
Absolutely. And remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. There will be times when you forget, times when you slip back into old patterns, But the key is to keep coming back to it, to keep reminding yourself of the importance of starting everything in God's name.
Beautifully said. I think that's a perfect message to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey of timeless wisdom.
It was my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, remember to check out the Broke Entrepreneur YouTube channel for more inspiring content. And as always, remember that the Quran's wisdom is timeless. Apply it today.